Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm super excited about this week's episode because my strategic advisor from the Goldman Sachs program is joining the show today. Today, I have with me the fabulous Cynthia Nevels, who is a technologist, investor, business management consultant, accounting and finance expert, and adjunct professor with over 19 years experience teaching for colleges. She has created and designed innovative entrepreneurship training programs and accelerators for prestigious academic institutions and nonprofits for over 10 years. She's also a chef. I don't see that in your bio, but I know you're a fabulous chef, a lot of vegan going on, and I know you're doing the RV life. So Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Simone, for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Awesome. Well, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Because you do a lot of things. So tell me about what you wanted to be when you were growing up.
A singer.
Oh, that's not even on the bio, a singer. Okay. And so then what happened?
I went to college, I got married, I had children, life changed.
Okay. Yeah, that lifing. Yeah, that does happen. Well, this show is about being in the driver's seat in your career. And I like to call it the driver's seat because it's intentionality for the outcomes in your career. So really hands-on as opposed to sitting in the passenger seat, so to speak, and allowing things to happen for you or to you. So let me ask you, as you think back through your illustrious career, when do you think you were in the driver's seat? When did you realize you were in the driver's seat for your career?
I realized that during the dot-com era, I moved myself and my sons after my divorce from Dallas, Texas to Los Angeles. And it was just us, myself and my two children at that time. And I moved and left my family, I left friends, and went to California to find who I was and to see if I could create a life and career that I wanted for myself, away from what I knew. And I did it and had zero regrets about it and loved the journey, the entire journey that I experienced when I moved to Silicon Valley.
Wow. What was going through your mind, and what would you say to our listeners who are hesitant to make bold career moves?
My philosophy has always been stay curious.
Mm.
And that's evident because of my vast and various experience in different industries. And I always say yes to the things that scare me.
Mm.
And those are the two things that have been driving forces for me.
I love that. So where does the impetus to say yes to the things that scare you, where does that come from?
I'm not sure. Uh, I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it comes from my brother, whom I'm very, very close to, and our competitive nature and how we fuel each other and energize each other to win at all costs. It could be that. It could be intrinsic inside of me as to who I am and why I love to discover and learn and grow constantly. Or it also could be my mother was adventurous and was a person who uh, didn't want to do things traditional the way that she was told it should be done. And maybe I picked that up from her. I'm not sure.
Mm. There's a generational role modeling going on. How wonderful for you to experience that, and then for your sons to experience the same thing, to be fearless. It makes me think of Shonda Rhimes has a book. I think it's Shonda Rhimes, The Year of Yes. I don't know if you know about that book.
Mm-mm, I don't, but I love Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. So it made me think of that and her just saying yes to things. I kind of wish that I said yes to going up the I went to Italy and I think it was the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And I am afraid of heights. And I've always regretted not going up with my friends because of my fear. So it just made me think of when you said, say yes to things that scare you. What's
Yeah.
something that you said yes to that scared you in your career?
Starting a restaurant in this food truck.
Hmm. Tell us about that.
My background is technology and finance, and I've always used, I think, what is it, the left side of my brain throughout my career, if I'm getting that right. And venturing into the artistic side of me, into a space that I'd never done before. I'd never worked in food service, never worked in a restaurant, never wanted to open a restaurant. And venturing into opening my food truck and my restaurants was something that was brand new. That was something that I simply did not have something from my toolkit to pull from. So I was learning the whole way. And that is quite scary when you're using your own money, using other people's money, putting other people's lives and livelihood into your hands. That is a tremendous responsibility. But my personality is I'm always up for the challenge.
Mm, that is so wonderful. I remember wanting to open a Caribbean upscale restaurant, and I didn't have the moxie to do what you did because I let other people, advisors, I'm not going to call the organization out, but just kind of paint a very bleak picture about the success rate of restaurants. So I am, I admire what you did with your restaurant and food truck, and you were on the Food Network. Is that right?
I
Recently.
was. I was on the Food Network and I've won so many awards, local and national awards for my innovation in the vegan space. And n- this company that was created for passion and love has taken me in a new direction, yes, but to places I never would have imagined had I said no. And I'm tremendously grateful for it. I'm sunsetting that part of my life and going into another adventure because I guess that's just what I like to do. But the experiences and the accolades and the awards are more than what I've received in my traditional role as your strategic and business advisor. And I've been doing that for 21 years now. Um, it's an experience that I'll never forget. And I'm really proud of myself because it all came from inside of me, the
Mm,
artistic side of me, the different part of me. And everything that was in that business came from my mind. And I love that. I really, really appreciated that part of my journey in my life and career, new career that I
mm,
created for myself.
mm. Well, if you think about, Cynthia, if you think about your career body of work and the different things that you've been able to do, what would you say is the formula for successfully owning your career? In other words, what are the key ingredients that are necessary to successfully own your career?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll share with people the formula that worked for me is every job that I had, and I haven't worked for, so to speak, as a W-2 employee for anyone since for 23 years. I've been on my own for a long time as self-employed. But when I was working for major corporations, when I was in Silicon Valley in tech companies, I would one take responsibility for jobs that I knew nothing about.
Mm,
I would research and study to learn as much as I possibly could about the new endeavor. I would listen. That's the key. Some people they don't listen. I would listen and observe and soak in. I was a sponge from smarter people. I was
mm.
never fearful of anyone smarter than me in the room. I'm going to sit next to you and take good notes.
Nice, nice.
And you know, I was always humble. I was never quiet. I was never fearful. I wasn't boastful. And I just believed and knew that I had a certain type of gift and I knew what I brought to the table, but I really didn't work to I didn't fit in that mold of trying to climb above everyone else by any means necessary. That wasn't me. My opportunities came to me because of reputation, of execution and delivery, and I just let the work speak for itself. So, you know, that's a different perspective for some. Some people really, really, really want and to drive their career. You really don't have to do that. You let your work speak for itself, and other people will advocate for you in the rooms that you are not in. And I know that there's this feeling right now that we aren't winning in corporate America, and we're exiting in large volumes to start our own businesses because we don't like the culture and the environment in the corporate and nonprofit sectors, and it feels unhealthy and toxic to us. But there's still lots of lessons to be learned. There's still representation that is needed, and there's still opportunity to figure out your own formula for success to make it work despite the barriers.
Mm, well said. Well said. If you had to come up with a title, if you were to write a book, what would the title be just based on your career body of work? What would the title be?
Oh, that's a tough one, Simone. What would the title be if I wrote a book about my career? I'm not sure if this would be qualify as a title, but I just wrote this quote in a document that I was creating yesterday. And it sums up, I feel, what I've experienced over the last 25 years, personally and professionally. And it was, I took the rocks that were thrown at me and built a stairway to a place that no one else could go.
Mm,
And that's how I feel. All of the barriers that I've experienced, I just pile those up for lessons and keep stepping on them and keep learning and keep growing. And then on top of that, uh, building a place that's specifically my purpose.
mm, that's beautiful.
Thank you, Simone.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Cynthia. I'm curious how you create, like, what's the messaging that you say to yourself that allows you to do all the different things that you're doing? Because it's not a traditional, there's a lot of add-ons, a lot of different things, and plus a dose of adventure. So what do you say to the listener who doesn't want to fit into a traditional mold. And some people try to get people to niche down, but you seem to have plus this, plus that, plus this, and you make it work. What's the message or the wisdom that you'd like to share?
There are three things that come to mind. One is you have, with the adventurous spirit that I have, you do have to be careful with that because you don't want to come across as indecisive or uh, scattered, without direction, no focus. And that's not me. And you've met me before, and I've worked with you, and you know that's not me. And so that's difficult to do because if you put your hands into a lot of things, people can't put you in a box. And it's difficult for people to understand you if they can't themselves put you in a box and label you and say, this is who she is, this is what she does, and this is what she does well. And you have to be very careful about that because if they can't put you in the box, they can't refer you. They can't label you. They can't say, this is the best person to talk to for X. And so that's difficult for them, right? And so you have to control the narrative that's centered around your persona, that is your career persona. And that's difficult to do if you really don't know what you're doing. So the key for me, Simone, is that every business that I have, every experience that I have centers around me sharing it. So actually, my persona is dedicated to sharing information from whichever industry I'm working in. I probably have experience in it, and that means I can talk to you and I can share and I can empathize and I can relate with your story, with your business, with your idea. And then I'm going to share experiences that can help you improve, level up, grow, understand, comprehend. And that's the key to me. And so it's not that I'm scatterbrained. It's not that I have no direction. It's that my experiences allows me to help multitudes of people in various different ways, and that's my calling.
Mm. I'm curious, does that tie back to the strategic advisory as a foundational element? Because I think of you as a investor or as a business advisor, and those seem to tie back to that advisory space.
So I was talking to my daughter about this the other day because she's investigating and researching colleges. She's 15. And I was talking to her about my vast career, and she asked me, and she never asked me this before. She said, well, first she said, I want to go to school and I'm thinking about getting a degree in psychology. And I said, no, absolutely not. And she's an artist. She is a commissioned artist. I said, go to school for what you love. Go to
Mm,
school for what you will feel the passionate side of you that you will enjoy. It is okay if you want to get a degree in art or if you want to get a degree in marketing, but go to school for what you love, not for something that feels safe to you.
mm.
And she said, well, what's your degree in? And I said, psychology. And she laughed so hard. And I said, but I never professionally used it, but I use it every day.
Mm,
And speaking to the question about advising and helping others, I promise it comes from my training and education in psychology. And I realized some years ago that even though I am not a licensed psychologist or a psychiatrist, every person that I connect with in my professional life, I use what I learned and intrinsically what is inside of me to understand
Mm,
people.
mm,
And that I feel is what drives me, along with my various experiences and knowledge about different industries. And I probably touched it in some way. If I haven't did it, helps me to be a really good advisor.
mm, mm. Just letting myself receive that. I'm thinking about my retail degree. I have a retail management degree, but I'm like, how am I using that? Anyway, I'm doing far from that. But
Mm,
so let me ask you, tell us a little bit about your latest pivot.
mm,
And you mentioned before you're sunsetting um the restaurant. You didn't say specifically you're sunsetting a chapter.
mhm.
And what's your latest pivot, career pivot?
So yes, I'm sunsetting the restaurants and the food truck. One, I'm older, and my body, this is another thing when you're thinking about your career. If you're in your 20s and your 30s, maximize the use of your physical body
Mhm.
and your mind. Because when you get to my age, things start to happen and change. And last year was a difficult year for me, realizing that I'm now getting into a new space, at a new age, and things are different. And so I had to really look at, do I have the ability to physically do this hard work? Because running a food truck in a restaurant is physically challenging and difficult. And so I had to look at, is this what I want to do for the next 20 years? Have I fulfilled what I really wanted to accomplish in this journey? And if I have, what's next? And which is, my life. What's next? What's hot? What's new? What
Mhm.
can I put my hands in and turn it around and see if I can accomplish it? And so the next phase for me is tiny home development, building a tiny home community that center still focuses on veganism and wellness and holistic living and connecting to nature, which I love. It still aligns with helping people like it always does. It's just in a different way that will be less taxing physically as I move into 20 years retirement.
Mm. So let me ask you, based on your all these different things that you have done, can you think about resources that have been helpful to you in getting to a place of owning your career, having the freedom to own your career, to be in the driver's seat?
Um, I would say there may be three that I could think of. The first thing is that I never, this is going to be opposite of what your purpose of your show is, but it's how I've worked all of these years. And I've never looked at my life as a career. And the reason why, as having a career, let me correct what I'm saying. And the reason why is because of the vast different industries that I have experience in some form or fashion. Because a career is progression upward in the same aligned linear progression in a space or in an industry or a skill set, and I zigzag. My progression upward is a zigzag line. It wasn't a straight line. You go from staff to assistant manager to director to senior director to VP. It wasn't like that. And I zigzagged. And so I'm okay with that. Everyone's not okay with that. Lots of times humans need structure. They need to know what's next for them. They need to have that outline for their life, and that's okay. Please follow the outline if that is going to help you to be the best you can be. But the resources I think that are most critical for me, it's a funny one. Audible.
Mm,
Audible is my best friend. It used to be the library because I am an avid reader. I love reading, and I don't have time to physically read a book anymore. But I do have time to listen to the book as I'm typing, as I'm working, as I'm thinking, as I'm meditating, as I'm driving to pick up my daughter or driving to meetings. I have time to listen. So I can get in 2 to 3 books easily via Audible.
mm,
And my philosophy is if there's something you don't know, get a book,
mhm,
get a book. And then, of course, connect with a mentor or an advisor for things you do not know. It still floors me, in all honesty, how many people will sit in misery in jobs because they never ask for help or guidance. And then if they get a no, they stop completely and they don't continue trying. And then they get angry with where they are in their position and in their career because no one would help them. No, help yourself. Get a book, take a class, and then find the resources that could fill the gaps that you have. Life is too short to sit there with the unknowns.
mm,
Find it out. Let me think of another resource. Community colleges. Steve Jobs, I learned a long time ago when I was reading about him. Of course, we all know he never got a degree, but he would audit classes in universities and colleges because he was curious and he wanted to know. And he didn't feel he needed to complete a class for paper. He wanted to know because of curiosity, which would spawn ideas and creativity. And community colleges are a great place for spawning ideas and creativity.
mm,
And so, and they're inexpensive in comparison to university costs. Taking 1 class, 2 classes, 3 from community colleges is the best investment you could ever have. And look for the right professors in the right classes or the continuing education department to find those classes that will help you fill your knowledge gap. And I would say, and some people may or may not believe in this activity, it just worked for me, and that is manifestation.
mm,
Really visualizing and manifesting exactly what you want and being intentional about that. And then once you say, this is what I want, it is so, believe it and watch it happen. Same, no difference than prayer for some.
mm,
But manifestation is another tool that has worked for me and brought me so many different awards, rewards that I could never imagine.
mm. This has been such a wonderful interview, Cynthia. I could talk to you all day.
Thank you, Simone. I appreciate you.
Oh, so many nuggets of wisdom here, listeners. Can you tell our listeners if they want to stay connected with you after listening to this episode, how can they get in touch with you, Cynthia?
Certainly. Startpivotgrow.com is the website for the Business Accelerator that I launched during the pandemic. You can connect with me there. You can always connect with me on Instagram with my name, Cynthia Nevels. And I live on there, sharing, sharing, and sharing. as much as I possibly can to help people level up and grow.
Yes, I like your bedroom redesign.
That's my Chef Cynthia Eats Instagram, and I'm sharing this journey to the tiny house village. And so, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm a fan and follower, so I am following you on Instagram, and we will be sure to put it in the show notes. Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you, Simone.
Awesome. You are very, very welcome.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.